Welcome back to Rejuvenate Edition 5, ladies and gentlemen. We are at our last session for day one, and I've got a very special guest today. I myself am so excited to get to know a little bit more about him, as well as the work that he has been doing. You know, it's such a mind-blowing thing to know that, you know, Malaysia has got this thriving scene of wrestling right here at our backyard, and it's unfortunate that it's not becoming mainstream, because to be honest, I think this is truly amazing, and it's a real art form, and we're so grateful that Ayez Shaukat Fonseka, or better known for his stage name Shaukat, you know, has been doing amazing work in the wrestling scene in Malaysia, and we're so honored to have you here today, Shaukat. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine, actually, to be here with you guys.
You absolutely look less intimidating on the Zoom screen than your poster. When you send me the pictures, I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy is huge. You know, never mess with a guy that size, and I was just truly excited. So just to give a little bit of a background, you know, I grew up at an era where the WWF, of course, before its name changed to WWE, was almost at its prime at that time. You know, I am giving away my age a little bit, but back in the day, you know, my time was watching people like Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, you know, Bret the Hitman Hart, and people like that, you know, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So we all grew up with that sort of iconic names, and that was the prime, to me at least, of WWF and wrestling in general. And to hear and to learn about Shaukat and the stuff that he has been doing in Malaysia has been a real eye-opener, you know. Of course, we're going to go into detail a little bit in terms of a female wrestler that we have in Malaysia as well, who kind of got popular last year when she was named in the Forbes 30 Under 30. We'll get into that with Shaukat in a short bit. But Shaukat, once again, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just a little bit busy past few weeks, but busy is always good.
Yes.
And once again, thank you so much. It's very humbling, and I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, and we'll get to why you are busy in the last couple of weeks in a short while, because that's also another exciting thing that I want to talk to you about. But I guess just to kickstart things, you know, I obviously didn't do justice to introducing you, but perhaps you can take it away and tell us a little bit about who Shaukat is, literally.
All right, so basically, I am the founder and creator of professional wrestling in Malaysia. I started the scene all the way back in 2014. So basically, it all started out as something very small, group of passionate individuals coming together, trying to grow a scene. To currently, we have, I would believe that it is probably one of the most thriving scene in Southeast Asia, to a point where we are like a hub where wrestlers from all over South Asia would love to be in Malaysia to wrestle for our promotion. So I think we have a bright future ahead of us. It's a matter of pushing this whole thing towards the correct direction.
Shaukat, so you said 2014. Perhaps just throwing it back a little bit as well. Prior to 2014, what were you doing?
I'm basically doing what I'm still doing right now. I'm in the filmmaking industry. So basically what happened was after finishing Form 5, what I did was I became an intern for a technical crew for production. So ever since then, I've been in the production industry, playing various roles, and it all started out from becoming a technical crew, and then somehow I ventured into stunts, and then from stunts, I became an action director. Action director, I ventured into directing as well. So I'm still doing it right now. I'm pretty much producing and directing right now. But at the same time, professional wrestling has always been something that I've always been passionate about. And I believe that in life, if you want something, you have to go after it.
So it's interesting because I was, in my head, I was already thinking of the next question, which was, how did you get involved with wrestling, right? But it made a lot of sense because you were a stunt coordinator, you were a stuntman yourself, and then you became an action choreographer in a way, and then, you know, obviously you direct films and whatnot as well. So that made a lot of sense. But I suppose when in 2014 you decided that you want to start off this pro wrestling thing in Malaysia, what made you switch, or what was that final push to make you decide, okay, I'm going to do this now?
So basically, the first thing that opened up my eyes is that at that point, WWE was heavily promoted in Malaysia. So they used to always bring down professional wrestlers for meet and greet. So when I used to go to the fan gathering and stuff, that was when I noticed that even in Malaysia itself, we have a huge pool of fans for professional wrestling, up to a point where even Astro says that wrestling is the second most subscribed sports next to football. So that means it's huge. So it shows me that there's an opening, there's a market here. But I've never been, I've always been very doubtful of starting something new, especially something that has never been done before. But then one day, I won a meet and greet lunch session with WWE legend Booker T. So I sat down and spoke to him, and I asked him, like, what should I do? Because I'm passionate about pro wrestling and I want to start a scene. I want to become a pro wrestler, but there's no such thing here in Malaysia. Nobody supports it. There's no pro wrestling school, there's no pro wrestling industry. And the advice that he gave to me was, if you want to start something, you be the one to do it. Because if you don't do it, I'm pretty sure nobody else will. So Booker T pretty much pushed me to start the pro wrestling scene. His words inspired me to start the wrestling scene in Malaysia.
So we've got Booker T to thank for all this, and for our audience who are not familiar with wrestling or is not familiar with Booker T, I mean, how can you not be? He is a WWE Hall of Famer, and for him to inspire Shaukat to then start off this journey in wrestling is truly, inspirational in that sense. So I suppose Booker T is someone we have to thank for starting this. Now, tell us a little bit about that journey at the very beginning, 2014, 2015, 2016. What sort of, I suppose, challenges, obstacles, hurdles that you had to face? I'm sure you probably have your supporters, but you probably have people who are telling you to stop doing whatever you're doing, So could you share with us a little bit about that?
In 2014, the first thing I did was I invested in, pretty much shared money with a friend of mine to open up a gym. So basically he wanted to start a Muay Thai gym and I wanted to teach wrestling. So what we did was we shared some money and then we opened up the gym. But at that point we didn't have a wrestling ring, so everyone had to train in a Muay Thai ring, which is different than what wrestling ring is. And then the first thing that I did was I called for a tryout session, for an audition session, for those who are interested in pro wrestling. And a bunch of few passionate guys came. There were 4 of them. My very first intake, my very first batch was only 4 students. So I had Eman, I had Faisal, and I had this guy called Apec. And so basically the 4 of us, it was just the 4 of us for the first year, for the first full year. So despite having just the 4 of them, at that point I wasn't charging much. I was just charging 60 ringgit as a token. And I had to work a lot of freelance jobs to cover the running costs, the electricity bills, the rental and everything. And it was a huge struggle. And what we did back then was we would always upload our videos online on YouTube, on Facebook. And when that happened, we obviously get a lot of hate from fans, from wrestling fans, because they are not used to seeing Malaysians doing it, number one. And number two, it looked like a bunch of kids playing wrestling instead of people who are serious in pro wrestling. But that was our challenge to prove that we were not just playing wrestling, we were actually pursuing pro wrestling. So after the first year, we did a show together with Peminat Gusti Malaysia and Malaysian Wrestling Club. So these guys are pro wrestling fans in Malaysia. They have their own club and there's a lot of members. So they would always do their annual events where they have fan gatherings to enjoy WWE and other pro wrestling stuff. So that was when I pitched to them like, hey guys, I have this idea, why not we do a show together with your gatherings? So they agreed to it, and it was at this event called PG Mania 5. So at that point, we did our very first show, and we had like 6 matches, if I'm not mistaken. So from there, we converted doctors into friends. Like, wow, this guy can actually wrestle. They are actually wrestling like how we see the guys on TV are wrestling. So after that very first event, that was when we managed to convince fans that we were serious. And right after that event, the sign-ups just multiplied. A lot of them just came in for tryouts. More and more came in and joined, and we grew exponentially after that.
Now, you mentioned a couple of things that I want to go back to and just discuss a little bit more. When you say the ring is different from a Muay Thai ring, what did you mean by that?
So basically, Muay Thai ring, number one, the ropes are very loose. Because in pro wrestling, you know, when we bounce off the ropes needs to be super strong and hard. It hurts when we even run the ropes because it's supposed to be very tight enough so we can dash towards it and it will give us enough support to bounce off. But Muay Thai ropes were very loose. And then at the same time, they have 4 ropes, we have 3 ropes. So the reason why pro wrestling have 3 ropes is because we are a form of performing arts. So with 3 ropes, there's more space for the audience to see from the outside or for what's going on inside the ring.
Right.
At the same time, it also catch out with the things that we want to do, like stunts, flying outside of the ring, or running through the ropes. So it's different in that sense. And a Muay Thai ring is also, what would I say, it's very traditional. It's very much like boxing. So it's different than pro wrestling rings.
When did you roughly think from that 4 students you had in the first full year? Well, in fact, before I move on to that, are the original core group of students that you have, are they still wrestling today?
Out of the 4, only one of them left. The other 3, one of them is married in Penang, happily living there. His wife does not allow him to wrestle anymore. And then the 2 more guys, they haven't been actively training or wrestling for quite some time, but we still keep in touch, very close friends. And one of them is very actively helping me with my current shows at Apec Wrestling. And the other one, the youngest one, Iman, he's in Australia right now. He is studying there and he's also wrestling there. And at the same time, he is running Malaysia Pro Wrestling, which was my former company, the one that I started, but I left to open up Apec Wrestling. So he's the one taking care of my pro wrestling now.
Right. Fantastic. So they, in a way, they're still within the ecosystem and you know, spreading the word of wrestling. Fantastic. Now, at which point in time after that first year of having just 4 students that you kind of see that shift where it suddenly went boom and everyone wanted to get involved in wrestling per se?
Right after the event, there were a lot of signups. Actually, before the first show itself, I think there were about 2 or 3 more who joined before the show. There were Amin, Afiq, Ali. So these guys also were part of the first show. So after the first show, a lot more signups came. Phoenix, Nur Diana, she was at the first show. And that was when she found out there's a wrestling scene in Malaysia. And that was when she decided she wanted to join as well. So it just grew right after the show. Like, a lot of people started joining in because they started seeing the things that we could do.
Right. Now, you mentioned that name which we want to go to very quickly now. Nur Diana Phoenix, you know, obviously more affectionately known as Phoenix on the ring, in the ring. You know, she's been celebrated all over ever since the article. You know, even Instagram has also featured her in one of the Ramadan celebration and whatnot. Now, how difficult has it been for someone like her to be involved in you know, something like this?
I think for her, it has always been an uphill battle since the beginning itself. Because when she first signed up, she was just 14 years old and she was very, very small and tiny. And she was wearing a hijab. So that was already against the conventional look of how a female pro wrestler is supposed to look like. Because unfortunately, in the pro wrestling industry across the world, women wrestlers back then, they were seen mostly as eye candy. They were used to draw a crowd to come in. But that wasn't how I was seeing it, because obviously, growing up in the East, I would love to believe that we have a lot more higher respect for women. So everyone, all the girls in my PW are treated exactly the same as guys. If the guys had to do 50 push-ups, I would make the girls do the exact same thing. Like, they don't have any leeway. Everyone is to be trained equally. And I think being a hijabi girl, physically limited as well at that point, was very difficult for her, because she had to keep up with what the guys were doing at that point. And then she didn't have a lot of women wrestlers as well to train together in Malaysia. So she had to train with the guys, and that's also one of the reasons why she leveled up so quick, because she had to train with the boys.
Right.
And at the same time, she had problems with, like lifting up people and stuff, because guys are obviously like twice the weight. And just the notion of being a hijabi as well, just when we removed her mask, because back then she was masked, right? So when we removed her mask, there was this thing going on where she had backlash from our own people, because they believe that wrestling is not a place for women. But they fail to realize that she is a huge inspiration for the Muslim women community, and even women in general, especially those in women empowerment in the scene, from all around the world, because she breaks barriers and she does whatever she wants to do without having to fit into a certain mold or a certain typecast that she's supposed to fit in. And it has always been an uphill battle for her, but I'm so happy for her that she has gone viral, so happy that the industry knows her name, so happy that wherever she goes, there's recognition. So I think it's something that is due, and I just hope that she continues to train hard and pursue her dream, because for me, I believe that with her current name and credibility, she can go very, very far.
Fantastic. It's truly, inspiring to hear of a Malaysian female pro wrestler, and to put in all that, to put it into good measure, wears a hijab, and is inspiring and empowering so many women and female around the world, regardless of cultural background, race, or religion. So it's really fantastic what Nurdiana Phoenix is doing. Now, you mentioned earlier about doing 50 push-ups for the men, and then she does the same thing. Can you explain to our audience here today, typically how does a training day, is like in pro wrestling?
Okay, so here's the fun part about pro wrestling is a lot of people think that it's easy because it's just acting, but it's actually a lot more difficult than what people actually think it is, because it is a combination of sports and performing arts. And for you to be safe, for you to be able to perform on a level that you're supposed to perform, you have to be training like an elite athlete, because your stamina and endurance need to be very, very good. I've seen a lot of people gas out or getting tired just from dancing or doing a choreography. Like, for example, when I'm training a celebrity to do an action scene for camera, and even when we are shooting action scenes, it's all cuts and takes, and there's breaks in between, and they get tired and gassed out. But for pro wrestlers, we have to perform. Sometimes I've had a match up to 1 hour, and that's 1 hour of non-stop doing action. And minimum is like 10 minutes. Sometimes you can go to 15 to 20 minutes. So for you to be able to keep up with the endurance and at the same time run and jump and explode, lift someone up, get slammed, it requires you to be on a level where elite athletes are. So training is very tough in that sense. Is for you to prepare your body to become a pro wrestler. You have to go through tumbling drills, tumbling meaning gymnastic moves, like rolling, cartwheels, back rolls, flips, because you will have better awareness of your body. So when you get thrown, you know how to land without breaking bones. And then you will have to get used to getting slammed to the mat. So this is called bumps. What you'll do is you will always just throw yourself to the mat as hard as you can for maybe about 10 times for 5 to 10 sets, just for you to get used to it, because you can never get used to it, to be honest. Like for me until today, when I get slammed, it still takes the wind out of me. Um, Sometimes when I climb on the top rope, it scares me to just jump off and fall on the mat if someone is supposed to roll out of the way, because it hurts. It does. You cannot cheat gravity. Because when we fall on the ring, the ring is a steel structure, but on top of it is plywood. On top of it is 2 inches of padding, and then it's canvas. So the 2 inches of padding does not do much. It still hurts. So the difficult part of pro wrestling training is conditioning your body to get slammed, conditioning your body to be able to hold up a match for about like 10 to 20 minutes. Because once you gas out, that is when you get injured, and that is when you increase the chances of injuring your opponent.
Now, speaking of injury, that's always something I'm very fascinated to ask a pro wrestler, and I'm so grateful today that I have that opportunity to ask a proper pro wrestler, right? What kind of injuries for yourself personally that you have experienced before that is, in your opinion bad, and perhaps what kind of other common injuries do you see in other pro wrestlers?
One of the common injuries in pro wrestling is joints, because the wear and tear is crazy. The amount of impact that your body have to go through, because like for example, like when you train for MMA or when you train for any martial arts, you don't actually take impact on your body, but instead what you do is they teach you to block, they teach you to avoid, and you only get full contact when you are in a competition. But in pro wrestling, we allow ourselves to get slapped, to get chopped, to get slammed, and to jump off from the top rope. So the wear and tear on our joint is very, very high. Like me, for example, I have very bad knees, even at the age of 33. I have bad lower back as well. I have suffered concussion for about like 3 times in my career. Concussion is no joke. Concussion is crazy, because the post-concussion symptoms that you suffer is crazy, like bleeding nose, fast heartbeat, headaches, nausea, vomiting, constant migraine. And then at the same time, my knees have popped out from its slot for about like 13 times throughout my career of pro wrestling. And some of them happen during a match. So let's say when I'm having a match and it pops out, I have to pop it back in and continue with the performance until it's over. So a lot of my students and fellow pro wrestlers, they often have knee joint issues like elbows, back, knees, so on and so forth.
Shaukat, you spoke about concussion and whatnot. A more mainstream sports like football, for example, has got plenty of research to back it up, to say that the constant hitting of the ball is actually dangerous to the particular person. Now, I would assume, as compared to heading to a ball versus what the pro wrestler does, is going to be 10, 20 times more dangerous than just hitting a football. Has that thought ever come across your mind in terms of, this is dangerous? I suppose, where do you draw the line? And I also suppose it's kind of difficult, because when you are in the ring and adrenaline is really pumping and running in your veins, it's very difficult to control, I suppose.
That's a very good point, actually, adrenaline, because especially when we are performing and we are performing in front of a crowd. So when the crowd reacts to what you do into the ring, they cheer, they boo, they get crazy over the stunts that we do. That feeds our adrenaline even more, up to a point where, let's say, for example, in an usual training, if I climb up to the top rope and I jump down and somebody dodges and I hit the mat, I would be so scared to do it, because it hurts like crazy. But during a match, there's no line in a way, because, like you said, adrenaline. So even if I climb up, I don't feel the gayat anymore. Then when I jump off and somebody rolls out of the way, when I take the slam, it doesn't hurt as bad as it does when it's during training. So for me, when I perform, I try to be as safe as possible by protecting my opponents, and I try to be as safe as possible to myself as well. But sometimes when the audience go crazy, that is when you push yourself and do things sometimes you don't even think of. But I try to, at the age of 33 now, I try to work more conservatively. Because for me, what matters the most is not the moves that we do, but the story that we tell in the ring.
Now, I want to move on to the next section, but we've got quite a number of questions that has popped up already, so I want to address them before we move on. This is from Abu Samad. As a Malaysian that is interested in wrestling, how do they go about making a career out of it?
So basically, the first step that you have to do is you have to train in pro wrestling. It's so weird. I'm getting a lot of messages from fans saying like, I want to become a pro wrestler, or how much can you pay me if I become a pro wrestler? How do I join become pro wrestling? You cannot just step into the ring and become a pro wrestler. You have to learn the crafts and the art, because at the end of the day, your life is on the line. If you don't know how to take care of yourself in the ring, you'll get hurt very easily, you'll get injured, and your longevity will be very, very low. So the very first thing that you need to do is enroll to a wrestling school, and then from there, learn the art and craft. From there, try to get as many matches as possible underneath your belt, and try to get noticed by promotions from outside of Malaysia. So for example, in Malaysia now, we have Malaysia Pro Wrestling. That is where a lot of people go to train pro wrestling. It was my former company. But in the future, there might be another platform through Apec Wrestling as well. We just stay tuned to our Apec Wrestling Facebook and Instagram, and we might announce something soon.
Okay, so Shaukat has just mentioned that, and just for the benefit of our viewers who are perhaps first time tuning in to Rejuvenate, in our platform rejuvenatemy.com, under the speaker profile, you will be able to see Shaukat's profile, as well as ways to get in touch with him and to follow him on all the social media handles. So whatever Shaukat has just mentioned, you can just check it out on the platform, and those details will be there. Now moving on to the next question, Ali here says, hi Ayez, wrestling in Malaysia is not considered a serious sport. Do you hope to see a change in that anytime soon? So I guess just to add on a little bit to that question from Ali as well, right? I suppose we have the talent, we have the expertise to kind of manage that wrestling scene. Do we have the support, whether it's from the KBS or whether it's any other form of agencies or whatnot that falls under this purview per se? Do we have that support? So how can we make wrestling be considered a more serious sport, and do you see a change in that anytime soon?
Okay, first of all, I think it's very, very difficult in a sense, because pro wrestling is a gray area. It falls either into sports or it falls into entertainment. Wrestling is sports entertainment in the United States. But in some of the states, it's also under the Athletic Commission because of the athletic aspect of pro wrestling. But it's very difficult to educate people about this, because a lot of people still think that we are a competitive sport, and that we are trying to trick people thinking that we are fighting for real and everything. It's so weird. In 2021, I'm still getting messages from haters saying that, oh, wrestling is fake, wrestling is fake. Like, everybody knows wrestling is scripted. Everybody knows wrestling is performing arts. We are not trying to prove to people or anything that we are fighting for real, because it's ridiculous. It's 2021. Everybody knows it's it's performing arts. So it's very difficult to get support in a sense as a sports because of this as well. But I do believe that the efforts that we are taking, Apec Wrestling is doing right now, is towards the right direction. I would say, to answer your question, support hasn't been good, because for the past years, since 2014, I've met a lot of ministers who promised this and promised that. But at the end of the day, it's all just ILEO, it's all just support for clout. Like, they would always want to meet up and take photos and then post on their social media and stuff. But at the end, always nothing coming out of it. I've also met ministers who are actual pro wrestling fans, who actually, like yourself, enjoy watching days of Macho Man, Eddie Savage, and Hulk Hogan, and Up to the Rock, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. We have a lot of those actually. It's only a matter of getting them to believe that we Malaysians are actually quite talented as well. Like, for example, we have Noor Finis, and I have a lot of talented boys on Apec Wrestling, whom, because I have a very close relationship with Booker T today. He wants me to wrestle in his promotion in Texas, which is also on US TV. So we have a close relationship, and he would always watch my matches, our Apec Wrestling matches, and he would say that the boys at Apec Wrestling in Malaysia are beyond great. They are on another level. They are on a level that
Wow,
is
that's high praise.
yeah, it's coming from someone who is a two-time WWE Hall of Famer. So
Exactly.
he knows what he's saying. He knows what he's talking about. So that's the reason why we at Apec Wrestling, we ignore all haters, because we only focus on the words of those who matter, like Booker
Yep.
T, because he knows what he's talking about.
Yep.
And to answer your question, we don't get much support, but we also don't want to rely too much, because we've got our hopes up a lot of times, and oftentimes we get disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are doing in Apec Wrestling is I'm trying to start an industry. I'm actually one of the first who started a professional wrestling company who hires pro wrestlers, pay them for matches, get them produce movies to have them star in them, to boost their names and make them become celebrities and public figures. These are among the efforts that I'm trying to do to help grow our industry. So I'm really hoping, and I'm actually seeing a lot of potential things in the future. And I would say it's very, very bright for Apec Wrestling. And I would say that support or no support, we are heading towards the right direction. And we would love to present you with a lot of surprises in this coming year.
That is so fantastic, Shaukat, and I love the approach that you're thinking, that you are taking. Basically, you're thinking out of the box. That's first and foremost, and obviously you're not constraining yourself to just wrestling per se. So that's really fantastic. You know, it's all about being able to adapt and diversify, especially in this current climate that we are in, right? So it's really fantastic. My hats off to you, Shaukat. A lot of respect for that. And you know, moving on to the next question that I have, I think it's from one of our female viewers, from Shima. She's asking, how can I suppose we have more Phoenix to be involved in wrestling. So I suppose I guess her question here, if I were to interpret it correctly, is like, how can we get more girls involved, or women per se, to be more involved in wrestling? Of course, you know, when Phoenix started when she was 14, you know, small, scrawny little girl. From that evolution all the way to this year, have you seen a rise in the number of female wrestlers, or even, you know, just female who are basically interested to find out a little bit more about pro wrestling?
Yeah, so I think it all starts with seeing something. Like, for example, before Phoenix joined, there was this girl, her name is Poppy. She was actually the first female student that I had as well, and she's still with me today. She's with Apec Wrestling. So when Phoenix came to the show to watch the very first show that we did, she saw Poppy, and that inspired her to join as well, because she's like, hey, you know what? There's another girl there, so I think that I could join. So that's when she made the first step. And then when Phoenix became viral and her name came out in papers and everywhere, that's when more women actually come to try out to become a pro wrestler. So basically, I would say these girls, they kick door down for other girls to come in. It's all just a matter of being brave enough, because I know a lot of closeted pro wrestling fans out there, because they're afraid to be ridiculed. They are afraid to try out the craft of pro wrestling, because they're scared of people calling them fake or actor or doing fake sports. So there's a lot of closeted, passionate wrestling people out there. I just want you guys to know that there's nothing to be ashamed of. If it's something you want to try, come and see us. We are a family to you guys. We would make you guys feel at home. Girls are safe here. It's a very safe environment for the women in pro wrestling industry. They are protected here. And if you guys want to try out, just come and try, see if it's for you. Because for some people, it's very difficult. We have athletes and former bodybuilders and martial artists who've tried pro wrestling before, and they cannot cope up and they quit. Wow. So it's very difficult. But if you are actually very, very passionate, that's the only thing that will keep you together with us. Because I would say that those who are with me until today are the passionate ones.
Great. Now, one last question here before I move on to the next segment. It's from Terence. Hi, Ayez. how would you propose to make more people interested in becoming a wrestler? So I guess we discussed a little bit, there are interests from people, but they're asking the wrong questions, right? They're literally asking you first and foremost, how much do I get paid for a show, etc., etc. I guess a lot of education needs to go into becoming a pro wrestler. I guess just to add on to that question and to expand a little bit on that, are there plans for you guys to kind of do an educational kind of approach towards pro wrestling? Instead of it just, yes, presenting it as a pure entertainment, sports entertainment per se, but is there a way, that you guys are thinking about in terms of educating the general public or those who are really interested to be pro wrestlers?
So first and foremost, I think one of the major blockers of people wanting to come and try out pro wrestling is the fact that they think there is no industry in Malaysia. What if I go and train pro wrestling? What if I can wrestle? Then where do I go? There's nowhere else to go. So this is the thing that Apec Wrestling is doing. What we are doing is we are creating a platform to help to give careers to people who want to become pro wrestler. So back then, all the way back when I was a child, when I wanted to become a pro wrestler, people always laugh at me. The thought of becoming a pro wrestler is impossible. Like, what is pro wrestling? There's no industry in Malaysia. So fast forward 2021, you can actually have a career in pro wrestling, can get paid to wrestle with Apec Wrestling. When there is a platform, when there's an industry, a thriving one, that is when the industry will grow. That is what would attract people to want to become pro wrestlers. Like in Apec Wrestling, I would prepare you to become the best that you can be, to step out to the international stages. I have a lot of friends in the United States, in the UK, who watches our product. In fact, our most amount of views on Apec Wrestling on YouTube, according to statistics, is from the United States, because that is where the market is. That is where the big amount of fans of pro wrestling fans are. So if you wrestle with us, most likely you have chance to be discovered. Then you get called to wrestle elsewhere. Like for example, one of our wrestlers, Azwan Serigala, he mentioned to me before that prior to pro wrestling, he has never traveled outside of Malaysia. But because of becoming a pro wrestler, he finally was able to travel outside to wrestle in the Philippines, to wrestle in Singapore. That is when he experienced being able to travel outside of Malaysia. So what might seem impossible 20 years back is actually possible today. All you have to do is just take the first step and try to train and try to make a name for yourself.
Great. Now, I want to just pull back to the very early part of our conversation where you mentioned about Malaysia being or having the aspiration to be a wrestling hub within the region. Of course, off the top of my head and based on my very little knowledge of pro wrestling per se in the Asia region, Japan is obviously a big place where wrestling has been established, pro wrestling has been established for the longest time. Are you trying to tell me then that Malaysia has that opportunity and has that caliber to wrest that title away from Japan and say, in the Asia Pacific region, Malaysia can truly be a hub for pro wrestling?
I would say it's not impossible, but if I were to be realistic, it's a long-term plan. It's something that would take maybe 10 to 20 years, but it's not impossible. It's all a matter of starting, growing, and trying to get there. Like Japan, for example, they have over hundreds of promotions. It's a culture, pro wrestling is a culture in Japan so much to a point where they have a stadium called Korakuen Hall, where it's made and designed and rented out, especially to pro wrestling companies who want to do pro wrestling shows. There's a ring there set up already. There's the entrance ramp and the big screens and everything, just for pro wrestling companies to rent and do shows for their fans. So that's how big the culture and industry is in Japan. Even New Japan Pro Wrestling, I think in 2020, their latest corporate report shows that they made about 12 billion in a year. And when they did the show at Wrestle Kingdom, they managed to pull in about 30,000 fans from all over the world to come to Tokyo Dome and watch the show. So that's how big the pro wrestling industry is in Japan. So we can aspire to go there. It will take a very, very long time, obviously. We can be as far as them. To beat may be a bit difficult because they have been doing this for more than 60, 70 years ahead of us. So we are still an infant, we're still a baby. We are still trying to learn how to walk. So I'm a very realistic person as well. I'm not going to say that, we're going to make it in the next 5 years, because it's very unrealistic. In order to become successful in life, you need to set realistic goals. And my goal is to kick this off and help to grow this in the next coming 10 years. And after 10 years, I'm hoping that we will be heading towards the right direction to reach to a level where Japan is.
So in fact, since you've mentioned it and it was playing in my mind, okay, forget Japan for that matter. I cannot then think of anywhere else within the Asia region or even closer to home within the ASEAN region where you have a thriving pro wrestling scene. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, besides us, who else is in this, so to speak, scene?
We have Thailand, we have Philippines, Singapore, and Vietnam in this region. And Philippines is a huge scene as well, and the population is huge as well. Like I've wrestled there in Philippines, and the crowd is crazy. It's huge. It's a lot more than what Malaysia can pull, and that's what I love about the Philippines as well, because their fans there are very supportive. They are actually very close towards something that is homegrown, as compared to our people. Unfortunately, when we try to do a pro wrestling scene, the majority people will say, "Alah, tiru WWE, tak best lah, better tengok WWE." So our people unfortunately have the mentality of moving towards what is already mainstream in mainstream culture, but it's very difficult for them to support what is homegrown. So that is what I adore, and I'm so jealous of my friends in the Philippines. But I'm pretty sure that if I drive Apec Wrestling forward with what I'm currently doing and planning, I'm pretty sure the support will eventually get there. It's a matter of being consistent and just ignoring the haters, focus on growing, and once we grow, that is when people will start coming to us.
Great. Now, just before I move on, I wanted to move on already, but I think you have one of your wrestlers here, Double K, who is asking a question here, dropping by to say hi. I got to ask one popular question for Apec Wrestling. Will we do live shows soon?
He knows the plan. I think he's just fishing an answer out of me to tease. The plan has always been about doing a mega show. Like I have the contacts, I have the resources. It's only a matter of SOP. Because like for example, I would love to do a show with my friends from the United States. I would love to get all the wrestling legends coming down here, former WWE superstars. But the thought of having to get them to quarantine for right now it's 7 days, even though they are fully vaccinated and everything, is a turn off for them. So it's very difficult for them to come down here. It's going to be very costly as well, because you have to cover a lot of things such as the quarantine costs. So right now it's a matter of SOPs and the rules and the laws. But when it comes to on a local level shows, definitely we're going to kick off as soon as we are allowed to do on-ground live shows to get the local support. But once we are allowed to get in guys from overseas to come in a lot easier, that is when things will start to kick off.
Exciting times, Shaukat, and I can't wait for that day to happen and show my support, ringside to you guys. Fantastic. I've watched quite a number of the YouTube videos and it's just amazing. Even though you do see the crowd not as large as how you see it in WWE, but it's still, to me, it's still surprising to actually see this in Malaysia. So it's really fantastic and positive in that sense. Now, you mentioned earlier as well, you've been busy the past couple of weeks, and I obviously personally know why you were busy. One of my Rejuvenate alumni from Edition 2 shared a text with me and said, you should check this out. And I said, okay, great. And what he shared was a short film that is going to be premiered tonight at 8 p.m. by Cineplus Asia. So if you head to the Facebook Cineplus, CINEPLUS space Asia, you should be able to somehow see that premiere of this short film called Taro. Now, before we move into the conversation of Taro, Shaukat, I'm just going to show a trailer from that short film. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Shaukat, that looks mind-blowing now. It looks like a very familiar Korean show that has been making its rounds lately. And you know, I see a number of familiar faces there as well. You know, there was a guy on the floor, you know, who was squirming in pain. You know, that looked like someone that showed up at Rejuvenate Edition 2 as well. So tell us a little bit more about Taro. What is all this about?
So basically, after watching Squid Games, it inspired me because it's an amazing show with a lot of lessons to learn from in the series. It's not just about gore and violence, but there's a lot of messages inside. Because when I learned filmmaking, according to Martin Scorsese, he says that as a filmmaker, it is our duty to educate through our work of art, which is film. Yeah. So I think what Squid Games did was amazing because through the story, it tells a very, very good lesson. A lot of lessons actually. So one day I went online and then I read a lot of comments from netizens saying that what if there is a Malaysian version of Squid Games? What games would they play? What were the lessons that could be taught? So that was when I decided to write up a script of a short film, fan-made film, just for fun. So this Taro thing is actually my take of Squid Games, but based in Malaysia. What if it were to happen in Malaysia, starring a bunch of Malaysians in our everyday life? It's just a concept made for fun. It's a fan-made film. It's like you know, like if you go to YouTube, if you look for fan films, they have ones from Harry Potter franchise, from Star Wars franchise, superheroes, so on and so forth. So this is the exact same concept. We have a lot of hate online, basically because people think that it's actually a TV show, or people think it's going to be released on cinema and they think it's a copycat. But they fail to realize it's actually a fan-made version of Squid Games, but based in Malaysia. So it's just made for fun. And it's also a platform for me to train my Apec wrestlers to act as well, and to mix them together with actual actors like Intan, Ladiana, and then we got two people from Aswara, and then we have our host from Cineplus Asia, Kinabi, and we also have YB Mazli as well, because he is someone who's always in a journey to learn. So when I invited him, he was excited to join because he wants to learn about the craft of filmmaking. He's so used to doing documentaries and interviews, but he's never acted before. So this is a perfect platform for him to try out as well and to learn how to act in front of the camera, because acting for the screen is different than everything else. So I think it's a fun project made by a passionate group of small individuals just for fun. And what surprised me the most is how viral it got. There's all the major medias are covering it. It's even in newspapers like Malay Mail, China Press.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I would say that I'm surprised, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Like despite the hate and negativity we get online, but as a filmmaker, to have eyeballs on your product is a success.
Of course. You know, I do see familiar faces there. Obviously, Nordayana Phoenix is in there as well. I see the big Gotham is in there as well. Serigala is also in there. It's fantastic. And we spoke about this earlier as well, right? You were saying how you want to also move the wrestlers away from wrestling per se and kind of find avenues and different ways to market and promote and to brand themselves. And since you have got that film background and you've been in the industry for such a long time, it only makes natural sense to find that synergy between these two. And like I like the way you have from the beginning of the conversation, you have already kept reminding the audiences it's performing arts. Wrestling is performing arts. It's also part of sports per se, because without the fitness, like what you said, if you run out of gas, that's when you start to get injured and stuff like that. So all that combined, it takes a lot of work. And I suppose, I hope today the viewers that are watching here today realize that pro wrestling is literally no joke. If you think it's fake, it's what drama or whatever you want to call it, it's not that. Literally, it's really not that. It takes a lot, and I'm sure Shaukat and his team of wrestlers, whether it be from Apec or from anywhere else, have trained really hard to put out that kind of show that they've put for you. So kudos to you, Shaukat. Kudos to the Apec Wrestling family, and do send our best to them, and we congratulate you for having this fantastic platform for pro wrestlers in Malaysia. And in about exactly an hour's time, you will be premiering Taro. So I'm very excited for that as well, and I can't wait to see more great things coming from you and the Apec family, Apec Wrestling family. So ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the session. Once again, we thank Shaukat for spending his valuable time, even though he's got a movie premiere in an hour's time. He's still here with us today doing a live show, so we are truly thankful for him spending his time. So Shaukat, any last words before we close off day one of Rejuvenate Edition 5?
I'd just like to thank everyone who took the time to listen to this old man talking. I like to call myself old man because, but I'm still quite young, but I see myself as an old person. But thank you so much for listening to this old guy babbling about pro wrestling and filmmaking and theaters and philosophies. I just want to say that it is good to be in a world where you can see things in very different perspectives. Like, never be the kind of person who judge people based on their interests, and never be the kind of person who would always want people to see things through your perspective. So like, for example, if you don't like something, don't force people to not like it as well, but be open to what they like. So this is what pro wrestling or cosplay or gaming or streaming is about. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own interests. Let people enjoy the things. Be kind and just have fun enjoying the things that you love without spoiling everyone else's fun.
Wise words, Shaukat. Fantastic. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of day one for Rejuvenate Edition 5. We thank you if you have been following us since our first session in the morning with Zulaika and her parents. We've went through a host of guests, fantastic guests, Dr. Malini Chandreshan, we've got Dr. Rebecca as well, and it's just fantastic to have all these people here with us today. So stay tuned with us. We've got a couple more shows on day two, where we talk to Daphne Ng, who is a former national badminton player. We will speak to Filippo Levy, who is an international rugby captain for the Samoa team, as well as Larissa Maloney from the US, who is a ex-professional beach volleyball player turned entrepreneur. So fantastic lineup. We hope you stay tuned. And if any of you were to miss any of the sessions before, don't worry, just head on to the platform, get all the sessions and rewatch it again at any point in time. It's almost like a YouTube or Netflix sort of viewing appointment kind of a thing. So don't worry if you have not catch the shows live. Anytime at all, you can rewatch it again. So Shaukat, with that, I will leave you, and I hope for the best in terms of the show Taro, as well as for pro wrestling in general Malaysia. And with that, I'd like to bid you farewell and stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.